All right, guys, we got a new guest here. First time in a long time, long awaited. If you're in the Discord, you kind of knew who was coming. This is Sephi, the Wind Archer, Wild Hunter, mechanic. Um, just want to say thank you so much for coming. I know we've been trying to plan this for a long time. A lot of things came up. Because we're kind of a challenge with the time zones as well. So I just want to say thank you for doing this.
No, I want to thank you as well, Davis, for inviting me on this platform, and hope to be able to share more insights around the game, the progression, and the content. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. So let's just kind of get into it. I want to get to know you a little bit. What got you into Maple, um, first of all, um, and then kind of just share your story and on that.
Yep. Maybe just a short introduction. So I'm a father of two now, with
Same.
two kids. Yeah, one is 5 and the other just turned 2 this year. So I mean, Maple it's a way to kind of get me distracted, if you would say. So yeah, I'm a very hands-on parent, but sometimes we need our own me time.
Me time. Yep.
So yeah. So Maple is my go-to kind of yeah kind of escape.
Yeah.
So basically, I started Maple in OG Maple Story back when I was in maybe 14 or 15, and basically only played the version before Big Bang. And
Mhm.
in that version, I was actually firstly I tried a lot of classes, but basically I end up as a bowmaster and a fire poison mage. So that was my recollection of Maple Story. And then when it first got introduced, I can't remember, was it 5 years ago? So I started in the game, and then my first character was actually a bowmaster. So so that's where my love for the archer class came from, actually, through OG Maple. I didn't play anything after Big Bang, so I'm totally unfamiliar with all the current bosses. So basically, just watching gameplays from the Korean Maple Story streamers, and trying to keep up with the progression.
Yeah. It's funny. Your story is pretty similar to mine. I actually was very interested when I played pre Big Bang, probably around the same age as well. And I played. I really enjoyed Bowmaster and Fire Poison Mage because Fire Poison Mage was pretty similar to a Bowmaster, right? Like the it had the fire arrow, whatever you called it.
Yep.
So it felt very similar. And then when I played PC or when I played mobile, sorry, when it first came out, I went from Bowmaster too, and I really liked it because of their AoE was pretty good. And then I switched over to Wind Archer because Bowmaster was a little squishy and it just couldn't survive in like the higher Star Force maps. And
Yeah.
then, the bow ended up translating over. And I really enjoyed Wind Archer because of like the mobility and stuff like that. So it's funny that, you know, I started off as an archer just like you. And so I was curious, like, I talked to Geminis a little bit, right, about this, but I was curious about what it's like in because you're from Singapore, what MSM is like. Is it pretty popular? Do they have seen like in other parts of Asia where they've had like, banners and like a lot of ads, like a billboard type of things? Is that pretty similar in Singapore as well?
Yeah, I think during the second anniversary or fourth anniversary, I can't remember, but there were a lot of advertisements in the subway, so you could really see that on the way to work. I think that's what drew in the crowd in Singapore. But the funny part is that I actually joined the Taiwanese Asia One server, not knowing that it was not for Singapore.
Mm.
Basically because in my mind it was, I see Asia One and Asia Two, and I would assume that most people would be playing in Asia One, not knowing that there are kind of the nuances between the two servers. So
Mhm.
that's how I actually started in A1. Um, but yeah, and I think over the years my Mandarin has also improved a lot. So I was really bad at speaking Mandarin or understanding throughout my growing years, but it's found me a new appreciation for the language as well.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome. And yeah, kind of want to dive into that a little bit, how you're playing, because a lot of people know you now for playing, your three mains, right? Your Wind Archer, your Mechanic,
Yep.
and then your Wild Hunter, but maybe a lot of people didn't know about, but you just cleared Will on that as well. I wanted to kind of hear what kind of got you into playing three, I guess the three mains to start off with, and
Mhm.
kind of just that whole background, because they're in three different servers. Is that correct? Or
It's two different servers. So I have
Mhm.
two mains in Asia 1 and one in Asia 2.
Gotcha.
Uh, yeah, in the same server as Gems. So basically, I think I actually started off with more than three characters in Asia 1. So I actually had a Luminous and I also had a Phantom. But those were basically only geared up to I think Mythic or Necro. No, I think Phantom stopped at Mythic and then became a farmer, Meso farmer, and then Luminous was stopped at Necro as well. And I basically just couldn't keep up with
Right.
uh yeah, just spreading myself too thin amongst too many characters. So I
Yeah.
decided to refocus on Wind Archer and Wild Hunter. So the main reason for playing Wild Hunter was really to clear bossing content. For example, Lotus, Hard Damien, and use that to fund my main character, which is
Hmm.
the Wind Archer.
Hmm.
So I didn't really expect to play any kind of Wild Hunter to begin with. I didn't have any expectations for that class, even
Yeah.
though I know that it is quite OP
Yeah.
through kind of various interactions with the Asia 2 players.
Hmm.
And then Mechanic came on when, we Gemini wanted to kind of start a F2P free to play kind of project in Asia 2. So they brought on Jiro from EU and
Hmm.
some of the guys, um, and Andy and maybe a few others from Asia 1 as well. And but I think that got really, that died down really quickly. And
Right.
but I continued from there on. So I basically joined two guilds to begin with. Obviously, the first one was with an acquaintance that I knew from Asia 1. So he got me he got playing in Asia 2 way before I did. So he sort of switched servers. So then I joined his guild to start off, and then subsequently moved on to Exiles, which is, the I would say, the leading guild in Asia 2 Scania.
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy. It was when you say like you're spreading yourself thin, right? I'm like just thinking about how I just recently tried to like downgrade just like the amount of like accounts and characters that I've been trying to do. Like I go back and forth about like trying to add on to my, my army per se. And then now like I got my Demon Slayer going, I'm kind of just like stuck. I'm kind of like focusing my paladin again. And I always just go back and forth. Like it's nice to
Yeah,
have second and third mains until you're trying to get like do all the events and do all the dailies. And then just it's natural for like
exactly.
that for one to fall behind or just like you miss one thing and you're just kind of like lose interest in it. So it's I got a lot of respect for you for keeping at it, right? Like three accounts is just insane. Um, and so I wanted to, I guess, kind of on that last note about the three accounts, right? Wind Archer, Wild Hunter, and Mechanic. What I mean, all three are pretty strong right now. How would you rank them as far as what you've seen kind of in Will? Because before Will, you could argue that it was Mechanic. Your Mechanic was getting the best scores, right, in Covert and like in Damien. What is it kind of now post Will?
I think in Will you would kind of expect burst classes to excel.
Hmm.
So classes like Ice Lightning Mage, Mechanic, Night Lords, Wild Hunter, and Paladins. And also some other classes like Dark Knight.
Hmm.
So these are the kind of classes that would pull ahead in this content. But
Yeah.
you know, being the leader isn't necessarily the best thing in Will, because it all boils down to management of the boss aggro in the later parts of the fights.
Hmm.
So if you have, we actually have a very stacked lineup in Asia 2, but because everyone is just pulling ahead and the boss is just moving all around, so it gets really chaotic and people die. So
Hmm.
then we don't really progress much in the content. So I would say that yeah, I mean, being good in DPS is one thing, but also I think it boils down to the players kind of. understanding of the class itself,
Hmm.
being familiar with the skills, the iframes, the basically what you can do to kind of avoid all the damage that Will is dishing out. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I remember you
So
talked about.
survivability, yeah, survivability is the key thing here. Over DPS, I would say.
Yeah, I remember you talking about how your Wild Hunter had to kind of scale back, right? To allow your, was it your Lumi, I think, to kind of hold aggro, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And that's like people don't really understand that how important it is kind of just to like, right, you got to think of the team, right? What's best for the team. And like it's not always the top DPSs. I mean, I think you still on your Wild Hunter, what you in this last second run, were you top or second still?
I was still top. So on in certain occasions I was still the aggro, but
Hmm.
it was very clear from the outset that I wouldn't be the one holding poison.
Yeah.
So that I can focus a little bit more on my DPS. I think what we did in the second run was a little bit more creative. So basically, Luminous and Nightlord are played by the same person. So he switched teams again. So we had Nightlord playing last night
Oh, I
as
see.
the poison holder. And I think it worked out really well because they have good survivability to tank the white eyes.
Mm.
Their triple jump makes them really easy to get back into position. Yeah,
Yeah,
so basically a lot of
I see.
survivability. And in terms of Wild Hunter, then I was just able to focus more on getting the best outcome for the team.
Yeah. Yeah. How's your mechanic gameplay going in Will? How does it kind of
Um,
fare?
yeah, so when you play Wind Archer and Wild Hunter classes which have a lot of mobility,
Hmm.
and then when you switch to mechanic, it's really different because mechanic is a very solid class. Um, it doesn't have that same kind of flexibility, although it does have a dash that allows you to reposition. So I would say very different play styles. And you just got to adapt and because mechanic is also kind of a hold down, not a hold down class, so you need to tap the keys to attack. So sometimes you get out of position really quickly before you even know it.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. Like the first thing you talk about is kind of like mobility and survivability over like DPS,
Yeah.
right? Like that's like the most important thing. So yeah, kind of talking about Will, right? You guys were one of the first Asia teams. Um, I thought you guys were the first, but you guys
No,
were like,
sorry, we weren't the first. Yeah, just to make it clear to everyone.
yeah, yeah,
We were
that was
the
my bad.
second or third,
Yeah,
maybe third. Yeah, team.
yeah, but I mean, you guys still, um, you guys were like prepping everything and practicing like before Will even came out, right? When it was announced, you guys were doing everything, kind of helping the community as well, sharing as much information as possible. What is it about? And this isn't like your first world first, like going for world first, because you guys cleared, was it Lotus that you guys were first? Your team was first
No,
world.
no, we didn't. We were not the first to clear Lotus. But we were definitely the first to clear Damien before they buffed the damage cap,
Yeah,
before they raised it. So
right. Damien was the one.
and
Okay.
the only team to clear. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So credit you guys are world first, Damien. I mean, you've been around the game for a long time, right? Kind of setting the standard, kind of leading the charge and all that stuff. What is it about like, I guess being the first ones to test things out, right? It's not just about like getting that achievement of being the world first, but it's just like what is it about being just being having that like challenge of being the world first or first in your server, whatever it is, that like kind of gets you excited and kind of like that you enjoy.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if I can say that, but so basically my horoscope is I'm an Aries, so obviously I love challenges. And in my kind of daily work as well, I experience that a lot. So I like problem solving. I studied engineering. That's really the mindset that I have. If
Mm.
I face something, I try to come up with solutions to try to fix problems. So I'm more of a kind of a problem fixer in my job.
Right.
Um, so that's what also I brought. That's what I brought also into the game as well. To try to come up with creative solutions to um, take down bosses. And but I think all that would not be possible without team effort because it's a team of 10. You need to communicate with your members, and
Mhm.
sometimes it gets really frustrating if someone is not paying attention, or they're just not being receptive. So yeah, I think, yeah, that really boils down to that. And the culture in Asia one is really different. I think the Taiwanese, they're more receptive, they're more open to feedback.
Mhm.
Maybe something like in the States, where you give direct constructive criticism. I think that's much appreciated in those servers. I think in Asia too, it's a little bit more nuanced. People do take in feedback, but they also get offended on the side, but they don't show it. So, you
Mhm.
know, so things don't just end there, and it kind of builds up and culminates in a kind of different outcome altogether. So yeah.
Yeah. I feel the same way, kind of the engineer background as well, problem solving. And I think one of the things that I've learned is exactly what you're talking about, right? It's like, um, I think I get a lot of credit. You're kind of out there too with all your streaming and all your stuff, but there's a lot of people on the team that are doing just as much work, right? That kind of
Yeah.
are testing their own stuff, giving their own inputs, and they just don't need to. They're not out there. People don't know about it, right? And I think
Mm.
I always try to um, give credit where credit is due, right? Our team has always been, um, you know, like you said, it's tough. Sometimes it can come across, especially for me, just being so like passionate and getting frustrated when people aren't like, we set high expectations for everyone, right?
Mhm.
And everyone, wants it so bad. And I just appreciate, I think it's very, people don't, that aren't part of the circle, um, don't really understand how much it's 10 people, right? Sometimes it's more than 10 people, right? That are kind of a part of the clears, a part of the discussions, a part of the trial and error and things like that. And sometimes people just see the end result. But yeah, I love to hear that from you because we're kind of the same way. And so like getting back to Will, right? You've done Lotus, Damien, kind of from day one. What is it? Where would you rank Will as far as like the hardest bosses you've cleared, kind of trying to get that first clear out of the way? Because that's usually always the hardest one. How would you rank it compared to other bosses?
Yeah, I would say that Damien would actually be harder than Will, because we
Hmm.
actually put in more hours into Damien compared to Will. I think
Yeah.
for Damien, it was at least kind of 8 hour sessions per week leading up to the clear. Um, and for Will, it only took us 6 hours in total, so about close to 7 hours, I would say.
Hmm.
Yeah, so the difficulty level is really different. I think it's firstly is mastering the mechanics.
Hmm.
With Damien, while the skill sets are the same, it varies based on the current position of the boss. Whereas in Will, everything is more or less fixed.
Hmm.
Phase one will end, should end by a certain timing. Phase two should end by a certain timing, and then phase three, the boss is basically stationary, right?
Right. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with you. It's funny how like when I was trying to think of like how I'd rank it, the one thing for Will for me that was stressful was that like we knew we could do it, but we were just trying to get it within like that reset week, right? Because you guys
Yeah.
were clearing like at the beginning of the week, and we were like, oh, like we can do it, right? And we believe we could do it, and like just the pressure of like the schedule pressure part of it, right? Like we were just like, it wasn't that the boss was hard. Damien was definitely harder, but Damien was like, we were kind of easing our way into it, right? Because we didn't really have, I think it was really challenging when Damien first came out to clear. It was, we had to wait for a rebalance, or we had to wait for people to get more gear, or figure out HP and stuff.
Yeah.
And for Will, it was 1 week. For us, we were like, we know we can do it, and we just got to grind it out. And for us, like our biggest issue is always scheduling, as far as like time zones. Weekdays are hard, right? Weekends are probably even harder sometimes. So
Hmm.
it wasn't necessarily the boss for us for Will, but it was more about like getting it done in like, hitting a deadline. Basically, that's
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
the external kind of pressure of it really made Will feel like the most fulfilling to me. Um, because like I don't think I've ever on a boss before. We usually like burn out after like one hour, like 1.5 hours max, right? Like
Yeah.
we kind of just it gets gradually worse. But like for Will, we were going for like 2, 3, 4 hours, and
Mm-hmm.
we were still struggling with the same thing. We were getting frustrated, but we were kind of still locked in a little bit, and we kind of knew we could do it. And once we got over the
Yep.
hump, we we got it done. So that is like why I thought Will was kind of unique unique and something that we haven't had a long time, right? Because Lucid was one day clear. Damien was ages ago at this point when we got that kind of first
Mm.
clear. So it was kind of refreshing to uh, go through that all again. And the excitement level was definitely there. Um, and so I guess the last thing I want to talk about as far as strategies, as far as Will, kind of picking
Mm-hmm.
your brain, you clearly put in the most hours in Will with your three characters. You've cleared twice on your Wild Hunter and your Open Archer, and your mechanic is putting in work too. So you're probably the best person to ask this, but it's what is some strategies or any insight, anything, right, that you thought of that could help other teams kind of get over the hump, get that clear. Maybe things that, you've maybe things that maybe people don't know about, or maybe something that like is something very small, something that's big, whatever kind of comes across your mind.
Yeah, so maybe if I just start from the beginning, I think it was really good that your team managed to progress together to from Part Damien to Will.
Mm.
So that in a way kind of you already built that rapport in that team. I think most teams are kind of struggling now a bit because of the minimum damage requirements. So it's a bit fragmented out there. You have people coming together from different teams and not knowing the play styles of each other. Just getting to know each other is the first hurdle. So
Yeah.
yeah, and then secondly, it's also about the communication. I think we really like players who keep their comms open on Discord or Line or whatever platform you're using. So I think it's really key to be able to voice out during the boss fight because things can change really quickly,
Yep.
and you need to be able to adapt and react to situations. So having being able to kind of take in that on the fly and give out a kind of a confirmation that you have received that feedback is very valuable.
Yep.
I think also in the during the bossing part, it is important to kind of listen to the shot caller. So we do have 1 to 2 persons doing that on our team, and I believe you and another person are also kind of
Yep.
calling out the rotations.
Yep.
So that's also important. Something that we brought over from Asia One is that we use a little bit of an what do you call that, the audio guide.
Audio. Yep.
Audio guide. So we made our own, obviously different based on the inputs that we got from KMSM and then refined accordingly just to match the timing. But that really helped us, dodge quite a number of skills, especially during the phase one period where, you have this cyclone going out and people dying to that, uh, which shouldn't really be the case. And also in phase two, I think phase two, you don't really need the audio, but it's more of kind of memorizing the steps, being being able to focus on your HP bars. I think that's really important. So one tip on there that I learned from Asia One is that you set your notifications on the potions. So you
Hmm.
you set it at 75%, and then you have your Ps um, giving you the boost at 90% threshold. So that means that every time your HP falls low, the bar at the top left will actually blink. So
Right.
it's more visible, I would say,
Yeah.
easier
Yep.
to spot. And
Yep.
and if you have your inventory window open on the right hand side, the toggle where you can quickly buff, you would see the P potion icon also flashing
Mm.
once you've said that. So it's something to kind of remind yourself because we can't really see your HP bars unless someone is toggling on that front. And there's always latency over comms, so by then it's too late to
Yep.
pot. So I think survivability, once again, prioritizing that over DPS. Let the aggro do their job, focus on surviving, really.
Yeah. No, that's spot on. Yeah. We've I think the biggest thing for us is like our supports really
Mm-hmm.
got out of their shell communicating, right? Which is always
Yeah.
super important, right? Our bishop, our phantom, our shade, our Sia kind of really over communicate, right? We always try to tell them like be proactive about it, kind of like let us know 10 seconds left on cooldowns, right? You have something available for the next yellow eyes or something, or hourglass is up. Like it's just so valuable when people are it just feels like they're engaged, right? And we're not
Mm.
like waiting for like it's not just one person talking to everyone else, right? It's like
Yeah.
right. And I think that is really one of the things that I found like you said, like what separates kind of our team from a lot of the other teams, right? Where like I would say there's other teams that had gear better than us in the past, and they struggled, right? Because sometimes people were muted, sometimes they just wouldn't speak up, they didn't want to get yelled at or whatever it was, um, and then yeah, I like the HP bars thing for sure. The blinking lights, like just some sort of additional, it reminds me of like when I would do Magnus, like manual power elixirs back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Just like it's kind of the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Like just like you can tell people that like have done solo content before that were trying not to just wipe out their power elixirs for daily Magnus or Arc or whatever it was. Um, we're a little bit more accustomed to it than others, and so yeah, that's great insight, right? Kind of the other things besides DPS, besides looking at the DPS charts, that is really vital to helping the team clear, right? Because everyone has their roles. And so I wanted to talk about a perfect segue kind of into class tiers, kind of class rankings or classes that excel or are needed in will, right? And you talked about um, playing your roles, letting your DPS, um, your aggros do their DPS, do their thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but what is your, I guess, what was your, um, I guess, what classes do you feel like, what is your take on the meta or just the um, the demand for needing certain support classes, right? Every
Yep. Yep.
team has a bishop. Every team has to have a shade. Um, has to have time leap in some way. Paladin, right? What is your take on that? How um, supports maybe weren't as required as they were before in previous bosses, but obviously now it's back.
Yeah, I think to that point on survivability, definitely Bishop is the number one class in phase three. So we have Bishop on rotation to kind of bring the full on support when phase three hits. So basically trying to shell, doing whatever they can, benediction, rotations, healing after every yellow eyes or after every white eyes
Yeah.
for that matter. I think Shade is just there really to kind of meet the damage requirement because at this stage the boss is still new.
Hmm.
So I don't think the developers have kind
Yeah.
of engineered this to be clearable within a short time frame. So I think they want in terms of the longevity of the game, it was supposed to kind of drag things out a little bit and wait for future kind of rebalancings or content to hit where you get either more IED or damage cap for that
Yeah.
matter.
Right.
So I think shit is there to kind of help us to meet that minimum damage check. Um, and therefore it's a very valuable class in the current meta. And then when it comes to other support classes, I've not really seen any Kana or um, battle mages, some classes that can really reduce the fixed damage scaling.
Yeah.
So I know that you run Sia on your team, and that's worked out really, really well.
Hmm.
For us, if you want to reduce the the mechanics for the team, in terms of things to look out for, then obviously having a Sia would be a fantastic addition.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you would need to have people either using their own iframes or coming to the center to survive yellow eyes. One thing I was really impressed about mechanic is that, even without I mean, we did have shell as well, but with just barely shell and the passives that mechanic has, I'm able to kind of survive yellow eyes even
Mm.
without any using any iframe. So that's something that is really good. So some classes are definitely tankier, and I think classes with short iframe cooldowns like Wind Archers, Hero, Dark Knight, for that matter, yeah, dual blades, they all play a very big role in kind of keeping the death counts up, so that you can use that in crucial moments. Another thing I would like to emphasize is also on the clearing of the webs. I think for Asia 2, we definitely struggled with that. And that's because I think it's just the way we position ourselves when we are hitting the boss. So, you could actually move a little bit closer to Will if you're on the left hand side. So no need to stay further out to the left. Move as close as possible to kind of dodge the legs. There's a kind of a sweet spot
Yeah.
just behind the boss where the legs don't hit you as often. So you just have to figure that out based on your screen, because I realized that because I have my POV zoomed out to the
Hmm.
max. So the kind of the markers are really different compared to someone who's using the default kind of zoom
Yeah.
in game. And so clearing the webs is important. So basically dodging the legs allows you to charge up faster and then be able to clear the webs. I know that a lot of teams that you've seen on the videos, they don't have an issue in clearing the webs. That's because they have enough classes who have iframes to charge up on the clears. So yeah, I think that's something most teams need to pay attention to as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I was just thinking about that, like how this is kind of the first boss as well in a while that uh, really brought back HP reducing skills,
Mm-hmm.
as you know, because like it's been a lot of it's been fixed before. Lucid had a little bit of it, but you could use like physical damage,
Yeah.
physical defense buffs in phase one to reduce damage, but like everything previously was kind of fixed, right? And that this kind of brought back, kind of opening some classes' eyes to skills they barely ever used before. I know like I didn't even know about the Sias, all the options that they had. I know about what Paladin has, but like what Bishop, they have obviously Shell and Benediction, like dual blades have certain skills that they can use as well. So it's very interesting to see that, each class kind of have relook at their toolkit, right? There's some
Yeah.
passive stuff that they have that they don't probably didn't even know about that wasn't really effective in Damien and probably in Lucid, but is back and can be
Mm.
really crucial. Um, so I think that's a pretty cool little thing, like anything, right? If you don't have to overlap an iframe because you're gonna have HP scaling, HP reducing skills, that's like, more uptime, less deaths, right? And that's like, if every class can kind of player can figure that out for themselves. And obviously self-healing is kind of OP, right? Like classes like Nightwalkers,
Yeah,
um,
Nightwalkers, Demon Slayers,
yeah,
yeah,
like
DKs.
DKs, right? Just stand there and tunnel. Um, but yeah, is there any classes that I think surprised you post Will that have been doing, much better than you thought, or probably having a harder time than you expected?
Yeah, I would say that Ice Lightning Mage definitely has a harder time. They have
Yeah,
been the champions in Calvert for the longest time ever.
yeah,
And then when you get into Will, you actually see the damage fall off the cliff. Put it that way. I mean, they're no longer at the podium level, so somewhere in between. And based on your last clear, I could clearly see that Truffalox was kind of pulling the aggro half the time.
yeah.
Um, and he had to kind of switch sides to play.
Mhm.
So that really introduces some variability in terms of aggro management. So there are classes um, that would yeah, basically might disrupt the team's um, kind of coordination a little bit. So you got to watch out for that. Another class that really surprised me was the Bowmaster. So we
Mhm.
started off talking about Bowmasters, and
Yeah.
in Asia 2, Jam's team cleared with a really steady Bowmaster holding the fort. And basically, why Bowmaster was really good was because firstly they could be the aggro, and second they could also be the poison holder. So they can do both in one. And the reason for being able to do that, firstly, is consistent damage output with their V skills, the storm arrows and whatnot, inhumane speed, etc. etc. Second, they also have this blink shot. So basically, they can teleport back to, if they set a location, they can easily teleport back to that spot whenever they get charged back. So you don't get the situation where you get confused and then you jump into the webs and die. Yeah, so bowmasters are really really steady in this meta.
Mhm.
DKs also, I mean, they have the highest burst output, so no one can really steal their aggro. Yeah, so I mean, these are the classes that really surprised me because DK for a long time had really fallen off. No one really paid attention to that class. I know Hero has been really consistent. But once again, I think the most popular classes for warriors were really Demon Slayer and Paladin. So I think it's good that the other warrior classes are showing to be kind of a good option to manage the kind of the aggro on the boss and also being able to survive, yeah, effectively.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I was thinking of the same classes, right? I talked about the pod today that I did. I said, exactly that Bowmaster was leading the charge and Geminus is clear. That was insane. No one would have thought that. Um, I mean, that's like probably what the fourth archer you would think of, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just awesome to see. And yeah, like you said, the Explorer Warriors, kind of what you'd hope would happen in like a game where like Warriors are kind of the tanks, right? High HP, but they actually have the damage to dish it out and be tanky and stuff. So it was good to see like the first clear was a hero, right?
Yeah.
You guys had your DK up there. Um, and I even saw Paladin as well, hold it down from the Dawn team in NA. Holy, he
Yeah.
was able to hold aggro as well, top the chart. So yeah, it was good to see. And for me, it's kind of like I was pleasantly surprised by, we talked about it before, but Shade. I was kind of comparing Knuckles DPS to mine and to like Truffle Locks and the rest of our team.
Mm-hmm.
And in phase three, he actually, I think he did like his 5 minute DPS for the entire phase was on par with the Night Lord, on par with the Nightwalker. Um, out DPS me by like 250 or 300 bill over 5 minutes. Um, and he has like 63, 64 mil cap. So still room to grow there. And it was just surprising, right, to kind of just see that, that, you know, it's not just a TL mule, a split mule. Um, that they're pretty tanky as well, and their DPS kind of is pretty consistent. And so, yeah, but I agree with you on all those other classes as well. And then
Yeah,
so,
on the point on Shade, yeah, I mean, I don't mean to kind of be disrespectful to Shade being a Shade meal, to being, kind of damage meals, but
mhm,
I think as you grow into the class, you kind of be more familiar how to maximize your output. And I think, Shade definitely has been buffed a couple of times also during the last few patches. So I think they're really in a good spot now. It's just that not too many people investing into that class,
yeah,
so to speak. Yeah. So it's yeah, I think it's just more about popularity and which classes are popular and people just play that class without figuring out some other classes.
right, right. It's kind of like you on the mechanic as well. People don't really know how sneaky good it is. And then so, kind of my last question is, has your opinion on what your number one class has changed? I think you kind of mentioned it a little bit, but has who do you have as your number one class post Will?
Yeah, I would actually rank Hero and Dark Knight as the top class in Will. Just because of the fact that they are really stable. They don't have any kind of downtime whereby you have unexpected situations happening where aggro switches and things like that. So really, really stable for the team. And I think that's crucial if you're a new team trying to pick up the mechanics,
Mhm.
and trying to clear wheel for the first time or second time. Yeah, I think having a really good tank, who is also a good DPS is I mean that's having the best of both worlds.
Right. Yeah. I'm with you. I think yeah, those classes are definitely like, especially when you compare it with like a Paladin Synchro, right? On top of that, it just feels so impossible to kill. It's kind of a
Yeah.
Paladin, a better version of a Paladin as far as being like the damage dealer with the survivability, right? And so that's all I kind of had for questions I had for you, and I want to kind of open it up to Q&As, right? I asked about it in Discord. Um,
Mm-hmm.
People ask questions. Kind of had three ones that kind of stood out to me. First one was, what made you, I guess we kind of talked about it a little bit, but what made you decide to deck out, like full on, um, go hard on three characters specifically?
Um, I think it's also, I've been playing Wind Archer for 5 years now. So I'm a little bit bored with the class. So I need to it's a way for me to find motivation back into the game.
Yeah,
And kind of decking out is a way to keep me invested in the game.
yeah,
Because most players who kind of deck out really quickly, they burn out really fast as well.
right.
And that's because they don't find any new content.
Yeah,
There's no more progression. So
pretty
I
much
don't
beat the
think you
game.
should be,
Yeah,
yeah, you kind of beat the game and you don't know what to do next. So
yeah,
having like one or two characters on the side helps me kind of focus on the game, and also from a different perspective because I'm playing Wall Hunter. It's a burst class. It's really different from Wind Archer. Mechanics it's a tankier version of the Wind Archer, but clunkier as well. Um, yeah, so that's the main reason why I'm playing a few classes. But obviously, once again, I'm not spreading myself out too thin. I just want to be able to be more familiar with the Wild Hunter and mechanic going forward, and then see where I can go.
yeah, yeah. I feel like alt story is what kind of keeps me around as well,
Yeah.
right? Just like trying to always explore and see new classes, find little, mastering a new class is always fun, right? So I guess adding on to that question was from Primo, by the way. This one's from Patrick. Um, if you could choose a main excluding your three mains, what would it be and why?
If I could, so sorry, a main amongst the three or something
Uh,
else?
Besides the three.
Okay, besides the three, I think I would really be interested in playing. Let me think. Uh, Fire Poison, because Fire Poison Mage is once again something that I a class that I really adore from the Maple Story days. And second, it's a kind of a class that deals damage over time. So something, it's basically a different playstyle that I'm looking for. So, not full on kind of mashing, button mashing, and things like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I would say Fire Poison would be a class that I look forward to playing.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I'm kind of biased to warriors too. Like I feel like I always just go back to it. So I like my paladin, my demon slayer. I want to play the arrow as well. But yeah, for me, I think I would, if I could choose, I would want to play like my first thought was dual blade, but then if I were to go like out of the box, like you said, like I really enjoyed like either like a bowmaster or like something just like an angelic buster. I really had a fun time playing that
Mhm.
class as well. I played a little bit in Hard Magnus days, and I feel like they just are like completely different, flashy, but not too like mechanically like challenging. It's not that out of the box, but something completely different, kind of just a reset. And then the last
Yeah.
question was from Don. Um, what are your thoughts on the future of MSM, right? With the inclusion of exclusive classes, um, bosses, etc. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think MSM is in a very precarious situation right now because they implemented this 2% contribution cap or threshold. So that means that the players below can't really progress much. So it kind of hinders progression, and all the chaos fodder and everything comes from recycling of mid-tier kind of equipment into the economy. So if you cut that off, I think it's really bad for the game's health in the longer term. I'm not saying that the threshold should be removed because obviously a lot of people have profited from that as well. Running CRA with like 6-7 meals every week.
Yeah.
So that's something that is not income that's going directly to the company. So I can see why they are implementing this stopgap measure.
Hmm.
Um, and another thing about Will is that I would stress that it is an end game content, so it is definitely not made for everyone to clear, and and that should be the kind of expectation that a player in MapleStory M should have. It's not it's to in a way reward the players that have invested into their accounts so far, having a chance to go at the boss. Um, and so I think that there's a little bit of a misalignment between I would say that people tend to group this two buckets together, that you're you're preventing the players from growing, and then you're only benefiting the top tier players. I mean, most games are like that to begin with. If you look at Diablo, Immortal, and
Yeah.
whatnot, I mean, all mobile games have the same kind of revenue model.
Mm-hmm.
So we just got to kind of figure out how to get around that. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Well said. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
No, I just wanted to thank you once again, for inviting me on stream. I know it's been a long time coming. We did say that we wanted to do one previously, but we couldn't get to the timing to match. So just really thankful to be here to be able to share my thoughts.
Yeah. Well, I mean, thank you to you too. I mean, glad it finally happened. Um, Finally made it work. I just want to tell everyone, subscribe to your channel, right? Show some love. I mean, you're doing amazing stuff. You're even streaming in my Discord, kind of your will content. Um, Very, very helpful to the community. So for a long, long time. So I just want to thank you, and everyone should show appreciation to you and show some love. So
Thank you for having me.